Hey everyone, and welcome to What If Disney World. I'm Stevie.
And I'm Amy.
And today we're going to share our experience with Disney World's Disability Access Service, also known as D.A.S.
We do not typically use D.A.S. as no one in our immediate family qualifies for this, but we recently went on a trip with a family member who did qualify and needed D.A.S. When looking for information on D.A.S., I had a hard time finding what I needed to answer the questions I had. So to try to help you, we wanted to make this content answering some frequently asked questions about D.A.S.
This is a lot of information, so we're splitting it up into two parts. And in this first video, we'll discuss what D.A.S is, how it works, how to register, and some general tips and tricks. For our part 2 video, we'll discuss more specific strategy tips on how to use D.A.S effectively in the parks. And we'll answer the common question, do you need Genie Plus with D.A.S? So for starters, let's answer briefly, what is D.A.S? As we mentioned, D.A.S stands for Disability Access Service, and this is a wonderful free program that Disney offers to accommodate guests who have a disability that makes waiting in lines difficult. It's basically like a placeholder that allows you to not have to stand and wait in the line. Rather, you use the service to act as your placeholder, and you get to return at a time to come back later and go through the lightning lane to ride the attraction.
Right. So the next big question is, how does it work? Well, you have two options on how to book a D.A.S pass. That's what we call the pass that allows you to return and go through the lightning lane of an attraction. You have the opportunity to pre-select 2 rides per day prior to arrival if you register prior to your trip. This is where you can choose a ride and you get an hour time window to go to that ride and ride through the lightning lane. These are preset times, and my understanding is that the time frame is not really flexible. Disney calls this D.A.S Advance, and we'll talk a little bit more on this later. But in addition to these pre-selections or D.A.S Advance, you can also select a same-day D.A.S pass while you're in the park on a rolling basis. So through the My Disney Experience app, you find the rides you would like to ride next, and the app can book a D.A.S pass for you with a return time that equals the current wait time of that ride. So for example, if it's 9 a.m. and the current wait time is 60 minutes, you can get a return time for that ride for 10 a.m. So it doesn't really save you time. You still have to wait the same amount of time, but it allows you to not have to wait in the line. So while you're waiting for your return time, you can go to the bathroom, sit down, eat a snack, or ride something that doesn't have a wait. Once it's your return time, you go to that ride and are able to scan in and go through the lightning lane. And once you scan in, you can book your next D.A.S pass in the same manner. You can only have one D.A.S pass at a time, so you can't book your next one until you have scanned in for your other one. And it's important to note here too that the return time you get for the pre-selections is set, but the return time you get for those same day selections is the earliest that you can ride that ride, but there's no expiration. You could ride it at any point for the rest of the day that the park is open, but you can't book another attraction until you have ridden that. Hope that makes sense. Other important note here, you can use D.A.S for the person with the qualifying disability and up to 5 members in their party. This is really nice and really great that Disney offers this because then you can all stay together and enjoy the park together. If you have more members in your party than this, talk to a cast member about what could be done to accommodate that. Another important thing to note here is the person who qualifies for the D.A.S has to ride the ride, and they also have to be the first person to scan in. So if your grandma is the one with a DAS and she does not like to ride roller coasters, you can't use the DAS for those rides. If it's your 3-year-old and they're not tall enough for a ride, you can't use the DAS for those rides. Okay, so now let's answer the question, who qualifies for DAS? Well, there's no list of what diagnoses are approved, but Disney does note that this is not for people whose difficulty standing in line would be fixed by sitting in a wheelchair or a scooter. Because sitting in a wheelchair or a scooter can be accommodated in line if someone has trouble standing, and so therefore trouble standing in line alone does not qualify for DAS. The only way, though, to find out if your disability qualifies for DAS is to talk to a cast member during registration. There's an approval process, and they will let you know whether you qualify or not.
Okay, so let's transition then and talk about the registration process. Amy, you did this with our qualifying family member, so why don't you walk us through how that went?
Okay, but first let me talk about what you need to know and what you need to make sure you have done before you register. First, make sure that everyone in your party that you want to link together is linked in your family and friends list in your My Disney Experience account, and all linked together with whoever you think might qualify for the DAS. Also, you need to make sure you know which days you are going to which parks, and make sure you have your theme park reservations for those parks for your trip for all members of your party. This is important because when you're registering, if you do qualify for DAS, they can immediately then connect you to somebody to help pre-select those advanced DAS selections, those 2 rides with the hour windows you get to pre-select. So it's important to also kind of have a game plan in your mind about which attractions you would want to pick. Okay, so now let's talk about how to register. It was so easy to do. The key things to know is that there are really 2 ways to sign up for DAS. You can go in person in the park to guest services and talk to them at that point once you're in the park, or you can register online prior to your trip. I would highly recommend the early registration for 2 reasons. One, you aren't wasting precious park time by waiting in line and signing up there. And when you pre-register online, you can do those 2 pre-selections or DAS advanced selections per day. So the earliest you can register is 30 days before the last day of your trip, or the latest you can pre-register online is 2 days before your trip. I would highly recommend trying to do this as early as possible to get the best options for those ride pre-selections. So to register, you just go on the website and you chat virtually with a cast member. A couple of very important things to note. The person who you think might qualify for DAS has to be present for this and has to be able to video chat. So you need audio and video on your computer, and that person has to be present and on the video. Before you connect on the chat, there's a box that will say terms and conditions, and make sure you go ahead and accept the terms and conditions. And then there's a box to chat. The chat is available from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Walt Disney World time, and you just click request video chat, and it will open up a little box where you'll be connected with the cast member. We are typically early birds, so we logged on right at 7 a.m. Eastern, and we were connected within like 10 minutes. Your wait time might vary, but it was very quick for us. They will ask you some information and then ask you the question, what are your concerns about standing in line and why are you applying for DAS? You answer this honestly, and they'll tell you whether you qualify or not. For us, this only took about 5 minutes. It was very quick. And then they will take a picture of the person that's qualifying for D.A.S. That is then used to identify that person when they're scanning into the lightning lane. And then they will connect you with a different cast member that will help you make those ride pre-selections. Now, this part of it took a little bit longer to do because you go day by day and you give the cast member choices of what you might like to ride, and then they tell you what's available, and then you pick what you would like as your final answer. To help you out in the planning, a list of eligible rides for the advanced selection is available on the Disney website. So when you are connected with that cast member to choose the rides, you give them 3 ride options that you would like and the time of day that you would like to ride this attraction, and they tell you what's available, and then you make your official selection, and this will then appear on your My Disney Experience future plans. Important to note that these return times are an hour, and if you return too late, you miss your opportunity. So really plan accordingly to make sure that you can make these. Again, we're going to have more on specific strategy and what we picked and how we planned it on part 2 of the video. So be sure to check that out. So now let's talk about using D.A.S. in the parks. So you have your 2 pre-selections set and you are finally on your trip. Yay! To select the D.A.S. pass when you're in the park, you have to wait until wait times are posted. So we would stand there for rope drop and refresh the app as soon as the rope is dropped, and then that's when we could select our return time once those wait times are posted. Some additional tips that we learned. Number 1, it's smart to choose a ride with a long wait time right before you break for a meal. So if you're going to have a sit-down lunch or even a quick service lunch, that time is going to pass. And so select a wait time that's longer, like 60 minutes. And then by the time you get out of lunch, you'll be ready to ride that ride. Number 2, we were told initially that you could only book the D.A.S. pass on the app of the person who qualified for the D.A.S., but we found that that was not true. We were all able to book D.A.S. return times on our accounts, on our My Disney Experience app, on any device. Number 3, D.A.S. is available during early entry and during after hours events. Basically, if a wait time is posted, you can use the D.A.S., which is really helpful to know. And number 4, you can use Genie Plus. You can book virtual queues. You can buy individual lightning lanes, all while still using D.A.S. We're going to go into more detail in part 2 because I just feel like that's too much to cover right now. But we'll talk about how we incorporated Genie Plus and individual lightning lanes into our park plans.
Well, all right. So that's a lot of information. I hope we helped answer some of the questions you may have and help you better understand this disability service that Disney has. If you have a question that we didn't answer, leave a comment below and we'll try our best to answer it. If you enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe and look for part 2 next. Until next time, keep dreaming.